Hey guys, Sifu Adalik here, Master Instructor at Kung Fu at Home, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of a fun story today because we're working on building these online courses for Kung Fu, and there's a lot of stuff out there with people that take themselves a little bit too seriously and don't enjoy some of the bigger ideas in training martial arts, because the self-defense part is a very important aspect of it, and it's really important we don't let our ego get the best of us and get caught up in a lot of these squabbles when really there's a bigger picture to training martial arts. The self-defense is hugely important, but what's also important is that we're using it to build a better life for ourselves. We're using the principles to live better, breathe better, have a good philosophy, and and enrich our lives. For me anyway, and for a lot of my students, that's what our focus is, right? Not that the self-defense is obviously, like I said, very, very important, but there are a lot of big things there. So I wanted to share with you one of the principles in Praying Mantis Kung Fu that is very effective for self-defense, but also hugely effective for life in general. And that's one of the things that my teacher taught me, which is shake the foundation. He would say all the time. So I want to explain to you what that means and how you can use it to improve your martial art, but also to improve your life in general as well, right? So this story goes back to more than like a decade ago when I was in what we would call Kung Fu La La Land, and I had finally found a grandmaster to train directly under, and I was overdue for a new teacher at that time to start pushing my training to new heights, and then I finally found him, and I was particularly driven. In this case, I was driving 300 kilometers once a week to get there, to get to study under this man, and I was excited about that because he was a master from Hong Kong. And I had learned at that time and understood at that time that masters coming out of Hong Kong were, especially from the 50s and 60s, were kind of a different breed. And that's what I was looking for. They weren't typically teaching, modern wushu. They weren't interested in teaching anything fancy, anything flamboyant, anything that was more directed towards, a competitive nature, competition. But they were looking at it more of a traditional sense, right? And that was Grandmaster Chao, basically to a T. His motto was pretty much, simple, useful, meaning that if it was simple, it could be useful, and if it wasn't simple, too complicated, really it is a good chance it didn't have any use. And his approach to applying Praying Mantis Kung Fu in self-defense was right to the point, which ultimately made it very effective. And one of these principles that he often repeated was shake foundation all the time. And this is one of my favorites because it applies to how we deal with a lot of things a lot of challenges that we have in life. This was also one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, not only physically but philosophically as well. Shaking foundation was all about striking hard, right? If you're going to hit someone, you don't hit with the hope that your attacker will get discouraged by it and then give up. That's not likely to happen, right? You don't hope that he acknowledges the point, oh, good punch, and then leaves you alone, right? Not likely in a physical confrontation in reality, right? Shake the foundation is important in Praying Mantis Kung Fu because if you break the person's balance with your strike, they'll be less likely to hit you back with any kind of a root, and therefore with significant power, right? Likewise, if you hit the other person without a root of your own, then it will likely do nothing, other than maybe hurt their feelings. In live combat, you have to count on probably getting hit, right? It's likely to happen. The goal of shaking foundation or breaking balance, the aim there is to keep the opponent from having a root. So when and if they do hit you, they're not going to have enough power to knock you out or knock you down, right? When adrenaline is surging through your body, which is likely to happen during the fight or flight response, the only hits that really count are the ones that either knock you unconscious or that knock you off balance. I remember being taught this application one day, and this is how this kind of relates to life, right? I was being taught the application after form training one day, and I was so happy with myself, right, that I took the time to learn this move correctly. And I practiced it on my own so many times until it looked like, or I thought it looked like, exactly the way Sifu had done it, right? And even while the other students in the class were kind of, during a break, they were chit-chatting, I was outside of the club in the bitter cold repeating this, because it was a small club, and I was repeating the move again and again and again. And I'm coming inside to apply the technique, and I had my I partnered up with someone and they were ready to throw a punch at me. My goal was to knock it down, right? Quick strike, because in Mantis a lot of what we do is is limb destruction. So we're trying to to disable the person's arms so they don't hit us anymore, right? We attack the tool sometimes, and that was the idea with this particular technique. And now, the person that I was partnered up with at that time happened to be 15 years my senior at that time, and they had like arms of steel from years of conditioning, right? So when he punched and I'm doing my downward chop, it turned out that it did nothing. It barely moved him at all. So his punch got in, no problem. That was it. I practiced technique again and again and again, but it had no effect. And Sifu says, no, you still have not shaken the foundation. And this is his phrase. And when he said this, you've still not shaken the foundation, it just stuck in my brain forever. And I can still hear him saying it to this day. And I think maybe it was because I was so embarrassed that I utterly failed at the technique, especially after training it for so long. And I thought it looked perfect. It looked right, and it looked like exactly what he was showing me. But aside from that, what the technique looked like, it was irrelevant. The technique did nothing. It was useless. And he would say again, you still have not shaken the foundation. He repeated that. And then he walked over to take my spot. So after he takes my spot, he motions to my training partner to throw the punch at him, right? And now Sifu at that time is about 78 years old, only 5'6", weighing in about probably 145 pounds. And, so the partner throws the punch and he replies with that quick, downward chop, and opponent's arm drops. Just, steel arm drops right towards the floor, directly down with ease. It looked easy for him, even though I was sure I did the same motion. The only difference was that it looked like he was putting in less effort than I was, despite the fact that his result was much greater. So after that, Sifu goes, here, come here, and motions me to throw the punch the same way, because the only way I could really understand the technique and understand what's happening was to feel the block. So I threw the punch at him, and to which he replied with the same downward chop, which that was as expected. Now, what wasn't expected was the searing pain that shot through my entire arm, and as my arm went limp and right down to the floor, pretty much instantly, rendered useless until I could rub the feeling back into it again. It was just right on that right spot, and the arm gets disabled. It was it was excruciating at the time. I can still feel it. But that was the day I truly understood what Shake the Foundation was really about on a philosophical level. Okay, it didn't matter that the technique looked right. It didn't matter that it looked correct. The only thing that really mattered is that the effect that it had, right? So I would understand this principle, and I would later use it to prove successful in my own life, in my own business, in my own achievement. Shake the Foundation taught me the difference between activity and result. Now, these are very different things, and it's very important to realize that difference. The activity, the technique that I had practiced, was what I put a lot of time and practice into, and I was proud of that. But when it came time to use it, it was meaningless, because the result wasn't there. That made it meaningless, right? Sifu didn't care if I made the technique look like it was good. He cared whether it worked or not. He cared about the result. So gladly on that day, thankfully on that day, I wasn't stupid enough to say, well, but I did the technique exactly the way you showed me and it didn't work. So I made that mistake before. Just like many of us do that in a lot of different areas of our life, right? Well, I did it right, I tried my best, but that's different than the actual result. It's too often in life, we do this all the time, and we do it too often where we try to justify our excuses and validate them because of our activity. We don't take accountability for the result, right? Now in combat, if you lose, it doesn't matter if you hit the opponent or not. What matters is whether or not the desired result was achieved or not, right? Being successful in any area of life requires accountability. Telling your boss or a customer, for example, that, well, I did everything that was asked of me. It's not my fault it didn't work. That might buy you some sympathy and maybe some understanding, but it won't get you the result that you need to get, right? And at the end of the day, leadership is about having results. No one's going to be around long to hear excuses. People are going to stick around long term because of results that you're getting, right? If we want to be successful in any endeavor, we need to stop getting hung up on the activities that we're doing and focus honestly on what results we're getting. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, at the end of the day, no one really cares that you did your best, although those around you might have sympathy for when you lay out all your activity. But to look at results honestly takes courage, and courage is basically just pushing toward your desired result, even when everyone around you would understand if you decide to give up. Right? For most people, I know that's a pretty hard pill to swallow, but those who manage to accept it will likely have a bright future in leadership at possibly the top of their chosen industry. Those who don't will always have a story about their activity, but little results, right? So that's my story about shaking the foundation, and how I find it a very useful philosophy, and I hope it helps you too. I hope it helps you think about some things. I hope it helps you get some better results as well. Okay, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video. One thing I find that's fantastic for getting really good results throughout your day is how you spend your morning, right? I teach my students that the morning is like the rudder to the day, and if you plan it well and you're in control of it, you're going to have a very, very good day. Whereas if you wake up and you're kind of reactive, meaning you just, you drink your coffee, throw on the TV, and you see whatever you see, that's going to have an emotional effect on you, and that's going to be steering your day rather than your conscious decision, right? So the best thing for that is a little bit of exercise in the morning that gets your body energized and gets you in a more positive mindset. And that's why I recommend a little bit of Kung Fu training, not a lot, but a little bit of Kung Fu training in the morning to get you in a positive mindset. And I've actually built a small program for you to try that. It's a week-long program that sends you a little bit of a Kung Fu lesson every morning just to kickstart your day a little bit and give you a little bit of exercise. So if you do want to opt in for that, it's totally free program. Just opt in below this video, check it out, and then I will send you a quick little Kung Fu lesson every morning to start your day. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to talk to you soon.